Hi crafters, my name is Alex Vanover and I create Cricut craft content for my brand DIY Alex. I love to teach Cricut, sublimation, and so many other kinds of craft tutorials in the easiest, least overwhelming way possible. In my Cricut Craft Fest class, I'm going to show you 3 print and cut project ideas that I bet you haven't tried yet. When it comes to print and cut with your Cricut, everybody always thinks of stickers. Now, I love stickers and even making stickers, but in this class, I want to inspire you to try some different types of projects so that I can expand the possibilities for you and provide some Cricut inspiration. So let's get into this class. First, let's make sure that we're on the same page. I'm going to begin by covering some print and cut basics. So how does a print and cut project differ from a regular Cricut project? Well, a print and cut project begins in Cricut Design Space just like all Cricut projects do. Then you send the design to your home printer. After it prints out, then you attach the material to your cutting mat, and then you allow the Cricut to cut out the design that you've just printed. Print and cut projects are helpful in a couple of different scenarios when it comes to Cricut projects. And the first is multicolored projects. When you work with vinyl or HTV, you have to individually cut out all the different colors that you're using and layer them all together. But with print and cut, you can do as many colors as you want. You can print out one image and then you don't have to layer anything at all. It's also helpful when it comes to really small images or images that are really intricate. For example, a watercolor image just doesn't look quite right with vinyl because you can't really get that subtle look with those really fine edges. But it's a lot easier to do so with print and cut. In order to do print and cut projects, you'll need one of the following machines: either a Cricut Explore Air 2, a Cricut Explore 3, a Cricut Maker or a Cricut Maker 3, or a Cricut Joy Xtra. The regular Cricut Joy cannot do print and cut projects. A really common question that I get from beginners about print and cut is what type of printer do you need to do these projects? Typically, any kind of at-home printer that's connected to your computer or your device works great. Most at-home printers are going to be inkjet printers, and that's compatible with most materials. Laser printers can work as well. You just have to make sure that the material you're printing on is compatible with laser printers. Another common question is, what materials am I going to need for print and cut projects? And the answer is that you're going to need all the same basics that you would need for a regular Cricut project, including a device for Cricut Design Space. I prefer to use a desktop or laptop computer, your Cricut machine, a cutting mat, and then after that, all of the things that you're going to need are going to vary depending on the project itself. Today, we're going to be making a card, a bookmark, and some magnets. So take a look at your screen to see the materials you'll need for each of these projects. I'll give you a moment to take a screenshot. First, I'm going to show you some print and cut basics for any project. Then I'll show you how to set up each project here in Cricut Design Space. So if you're going to be using files for your project that you're importing into Cricut Design Space, typically when you download those files, they're going to go into the Downloads folder on your device, and they're going to be in a zipped up file just like this. So in order to upload them into Cricut Design Space, what you'll want to do is you'll want to take your mouse and right click on top of your folder, and then you'll choose Extract All. And next, you want to choose a location for those files to extract that you can find them. So if you're happy with this folder right here, and that's where you want the files to go, you can leave it. Or you can click on Browse and you can change that location. So I'm just going to change mine to the Downloads folder so that it's going to download into a new folder in my downloads. Then I'll choose Select Folder and then Extract. And then when I scroll up, I can see that the files are right here in a brand new folder. Now I can open them and actually work on the files themselves. I can upload them or do whatever I need to do. The next thing I want to talk to you about is file type when it comes to print and cut files. If you've worked with a Cricut before, you know that typically Cricut Design Space works best with SVG type files. But print and cut is a little bit different. I highly recommend using PNG files, and those are my personal files of choice, and I just think they work best with Cricut Design Space when it comes to print and cut. And if you're ever not sure, as you can see when you hover over the name of each file, it'll show you the item type. That is the file type. So all of these are going to be PNGs if you are using the Easter bundle of files like I am. So next, let's talk about how to import these files for Print Then Cut, because it is slightly different than how you would do so for a cut file. So I'm going to go back into Cricut Design Space. Here I'm on the canvas, as you can see by this tab. And in order to upload my files, I'm going to scroll down and choose Upload. Then I'll choose the white Upload Image button and click Browse. Then I'm going to go to the location of where I just extracted my files. So remember, for me, that was in the downloads folder. Then I have this little folder here full of my files. So I can only upload one at a time. So I'll just begin with cross number 1. I'll select it and then choose open. And now, as you can see, we have this image here in the corner. Whenever I am selecting the image type here on the right side for Print Then Cut files, I always choose the file as complex, and then I click on the green continue button. And next, you'll want to take a look at the file itself. Now, typically, if you upload a PNG type file like we are, it already has a transparent background, which is what this gray and white checkered texture means. It means that the background is already transparent. And that's one of the reasons why I love PNG files, is because they can hold a transparent background. If the background of your file is white or another color and you don't want to cut that color out, then you'll want to use the tools here on the left-hand side to remove the background and things like that. But because we're using a PNG file, we don't have to do any of that. We can just simply click apply and continue. Now, here's where things get a little bit tricky when it comes to Print Then Cut files. Typically, if you're uploading most types of files, you will choose a cut image for your file. And as you can see, this is like the gray version of our file. Basically, it's just going to cut out the outline of the image itself. Whereas when you're doing Print Then Cut projects, you want to choose the Print Then Cut image on the right. And I know it's not very colorful, so it's hard to see, but this is going to keep the cross black, which is exactly how we imported it. So you want to make sure you have the green rectangle around the Print Then Cut image. You can change the image name if you want and add tags. You can even add it to a collection, and then you'll choose upload. Then once you have your files uploaded into Cricut Design Space, you can select whatever you want and then click add to canvas. Something else that you need to know about Print Then Cut projects is it's very helpful to calibrate your machine. Now, what calibrating does is it just helps your Cricut machine get a more accurate cut on Print Then Cut projects. So you don't have to do this every single time that you do Print Then Cut. In fact, I would say I probably do mine like a couple of times a year. Or if you start to notice that your Cricut is not cutting very accurately when it comes to Print Then Cut, that's another good time to do a calibration for your machine. Now, in order to do a calibration, you're going to go up to this menu here in the upper right-hand side with this little down-facing triangle. You're going to click on that menu and then choose Settings. And then from here, you're going to go over to the Machines tab. And then under Machine Calibration, you'll want to select the Cricut device that you want to calibrate. Now, I'm not going to walk you through the whole process here because it's very, very easy, but if you read the prompts on the screen, everything will make sense, and it's a super easy process to go through. I just wanted you to know that that was there because a lot of beginners don't realize that this is an option. It's also helpful to do this before you do your very first Print Then Cut project. If you've never done one before, a machine calibration is definitely a good idea. So the next project that I'm going to show you how to make is printable magnets. And you can make magnets with so many different ways. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Photo magnets. So let me show you how to upload a photo into Cricut Design Space and turn it into a magnet. So to begin, you need to send your photo to your device. I went ahead and emailed my photo to myself and then downloaded it into my downloads folder. Then I'm going to choose upload from the design panel of Design Space, and then choose upload image. Then you want to scroll through your device wherever you saved your photo, click on it and choose open. And then I'm going to choose the image as complex and click continue. Then you don't have to make any changes on this screen, but I am going to crop my photo just a little bit so that it fits the project that I'm making a little bit better. I'm going to leave some extra room at the bottom because I'm going to be adding in some text to my magnet. Then I'll click apply and continue. Then I'll choose the Print Then Cut version of this image and rename this Easter photo, and then click upload. Then once the image is uploaded, you can click it to select it and then click add to canvas. So as you can see, the photo imported really, really large, and I need to resize it
to make it within the size limits of Cricut Design Space Print Then Cut, and that does vary a lot. Sometimes Cricut Design Space updates and those sizes change. So in order to find what size I need to make this photo, I can hover over this little red exclamation point, letting me know that my photo is too big, and it's going to tell me that this is the maximum size for my photo. Now I'm going to make it a little smaller than this because I think this would be pretty large, but it's good to know that's what my options are. So I can either click auto resize image, or I can just click on my photo and resize it myself up here at the top. So I'm going to make my photo, let's say 4 inches wide, and then it's almost 6 inches high. So that's more like the size of a 4x6 photo. Now you can cut your magnet as is. You don't have to make any changes to the photo. You could add a border around the outside or add any kind of clip art or anything you want to the photo itself, just like you would any other Cricut Design Space project. But I'm going to add some text here at the bottom that says "We're expecting." This is a photo of my husband and I last Easter, so I already have had my baby, but I thought it would be a cute way to announce a pregnancy, especially to like your family if you wanted to make a photo magnet for them. I'm going to click and add some text just like I would to any other project. I have the Big Adventure font selected, but of course you can use any font you want. And I'm going to type in "We're expecting." Then I'm going to make my text white by highlighting it and then next to operation, changing it to white. Then I'll resize it using the corner handle to fit at the bottom of my magnet. Now this grass is a pretty bright green and I want a little bit more contrast. In order to add an offset around my text, I'm going to highlight my text and then click on offset. And then you can either type in the offset here or you can move the slider bar. And I'm going to move this way in so I have a nice, really tiny offset since I'm using some really thin text. Let's try it at this 0.04 inches and then click on apply. So as you can see, that's much brighter and you can definitely read it in the grass. So I think an offset around your text is definitely a good choice. Then in order to make sure that the text cuts on top of the magnet, I'm going to click and draw a box all the way around the magnet and the text and the offset and choose flatten. And then that's what my magnet will look like. So in order to fill up my magnet sheet, I'm going to duplicate my project a couple of times from the stickers so that I have a little bit of extra. You can't send your sheets back through your printer more than once, so I always like to fill up my sheets as much as possible. So once your project is ready and everything is flattened, you can click on the green Make It button, and then you can double check that your pages look the way that you want them to. Then you'll click on Continue, and once your Explore Air 2 connects, then you can start setting up your printer settings. So I'm going to click on the green Send to Printer button. I'm going to turn off Bleed since I already have an offset around all of my shapes, and turn on the Use System dialog box and click on Print. And then I'm going to change my preferences. Now this might be different if you're using a different printable magnet sheet than I am, but I like to change my paper type to the Premium Photo Paper Glossy and change the quality from standard to high, and then click on OK. So then once I have my magnetic sheet printed, I already showed you guys how to load that into your printer previously in this video. Then you're going to change the settings on your Explore Air 2 to cut that magnetic sheet. So in order to find that, I changed my dial to custom so that I can choose the setting from my computer. Then I'm going to click on Browse All Materials and search Magnet here in the search bar. The setting I found worked best was the magnetic sheet 0.6 millimeters. So that's what I'm going to choose. And I'm actually going to cut it a second time. I'll show you guys how to do that when we get to the Cricut. And then I'll choose Done. So now I'll meet you guys over at my craft table and I'll show you how to finish your magnets.
When it comes to loading materials into your printer for print and cut projects, the process is basically the same every time. The only thing that can be a little bit tricky is to make sure that you're printing on the correct side of your materials, because sometimes, depending on what you're printing, the back and the front really pretty much look the same. So if you're ever unsure about what side to print on, you can always use your weeding tool to peel up a small corner and see which side is the front of the material and which side is the back. So when I load materials into my printer, I like to remove any paper that I have in my printer so that I don't accidentally print extra pages just onto regular paper. Stick it in the top of my printer. Of course, you may have to put it somewhere different in your printer depending on your printer model. Then I have to confirm the paper settings that I set on my computer, so I'll just click OK to do that. And then I'll go back to my computer and press print. So once you have your magnetic sheet all printed out and ready to go, next you need your standard grip cutting mat because this worked best for my magnet sheet at least. Then you need to peel off the cover sheet and place your magnetic sheet in the upper left-hand corner, just like we always do with Print Then Cut projects. Now this one I think is gonna be okay, but if you have any edges peeling up like I do, you could use some painter's tape or masking tape to secure that in place as it goes into your Cricut machine. Just make sure that you're not covering any of the 4 registration marks that your Cricut is going to need to read. So next we're going to open up the Explore Air 2 and insert that mat into the machine. And actually it is peeling up a little bit. So pause, I'm gonna add some painter's tape. Okay, so now that my project is taped down, I'll go ahead and insert the mat into my machine. And when I press go, my machine is going to scan the registration marks and then cut out my magnets. Remember earlier in this video, I told you that we were gonna do a double cut with this cut setting because the first time it didn't cut my magnets well enough. In order to do a double cut setting anytime you want to on your Cricut, it's really, really easy to do. All you need to do is press the go button a second time. Now you do not want to press the flashing arrow button because once you unload your mat from the machine, it will not cut in the exact same place when you reload it. So just simply press your go button a second time and that will give you a double cut. So now that this is finished, I'll go ahead and unload my magnets and I'll show you how beautifully they were cut out. So once you have your magnetic sheets cut out, they look something like this. They turned out so beautiful with such great quality. Now I do believe these would only be indoor magnets. I wouldn't suggest you put something like this like on your car or something like that because I don't think that it would hold up in the elements. But the quality of these magnets turns out so beautiful and it's such a fun project that you can do as a print and cut project on your Cricut.
Now, a really neat way to step up your cards is to make them using Print Then Cut so that you don't have to layer a bunch of cardstock elements and you can print way more complex images on your card than when you have to cut them individually out of cardstock. Now, one important note to keep in mind is that if you have a Cricut Explore Air 2, you can only Print Then Cut onto white cardstock. If you have the Cricut Maker, Maker 3, Explore 3, or the Joy Xtra, you can print onto light colored cardstock to open up even more possibilities of doing this. To begin, because we are a little restricted with the size of Print Then Cut, we're only going to Print Then Cut the front panel of the card. We're just going to cut the regular card out of cardstock, just like we would with any other project. So to begin, we're going to create the base of our card using a basic shape. So click on the basic shapes panel and insert a square. Then you're going to unlock this square and you're going to size it to 7 inches wide by 10 inches high. Now this is going to be a card that folds horizontally, so that's why it's so wide. But I'm going to go ahead and keep this selected, and then I'm going to come over to operation and I'm going to change the color to like this really pretty light blue color because we don't have to regular cut white cardstock. We can only Print Then Cut onto white. So once we have this established, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. We are going to add a score line down the center so that it cuts like a regular card. So we're going to go back into basic shapes and insert a line. Then I'm going to bring my line a little closer to my card. Then I'm going to hover my mouse until I get this rounded arrow. Hold the mouse down and rotate my line until I get it at exactly 90 degrees. There we go. Then I can stretch it across my card like this. Now I want to make sure that I am putting this line in exactly the middle. So I'm going to select both my line and my square, and under the Align menu, I'm going to choose Center, and that's going to center my line and my card. Then I will click on both and select Attach, so that they cut and score in this exact same location. So now let's go to the Print Then Cut front panel. So I'm going to go ahead and insert another shape again, that's a square, and I'm going to resize this to fit on the front of the card. So I'm going to unlock the square up in the upper toolbar, and then I'm going to use my little arrow to kind of resize it to the size that I want to make it. I don't want to have a huge border around it or anything, just a small one. So I'll let this be a little bit bigger than 4 by 6. Next, I'm going to change the color of the background of my card panel. Just because I have to print then cut on white cardstock does not mean that I have to leave this white. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to, let's do advanced, and then I'll do a really pretty shade of pink so that we can make this like a springy, really pretty colored card. I'll leave it something like light pink. So next, let's insert the elements that we want to add to our card that we want to print then cut. So I'm going to go into Uploads, and I'm going to click on some images that I recently added into Design Space and choose Add to Canvas. Now I can arrange these sentiments however I would like. So I'm going to make this Happy Easter, be kind of small, and then I think I'm going to place these eggs kind of across the bottom, but I want them to be the same size since I'm going to use more than one. So I'm going to click on one of these eggs and copy the height, and then I'm going to select the other egg and paste the height here so that they are exactly the same. So then I'll add this egg here. Then I'm going to click and select both of them and then copy and paste another set so that I can kind of make it look like they're like a rotating pattern. Then I'll copy this one and paste it one last time to add one more egg on the other side. I think that looks super cute, and that helps me to avoid layering a million pieces of cardstock to create the front panel of this card. If I was making all of these eggs using cardstock, that would take forever. So I'm definitely a fan of working more efficiently so that I can have everything come out at once. So I'm going to click and drag a box around all of this, and I'm going to select flatten since we're going to be printing then cutting this whole front panel, and then we can proceed through our project. So we'll click the green Make It button, and we'll double check that the card panel is on a print then cut mat by itself, and then this project is just going to be cut and then scored on a regular cutting mat. And we'll click on continue. And I'm going to be using 65-pound cardstock, by the way. I think that goes through my printer best. So this print then cut piece is going to be on white 65-pound cardstock. So I'm going to do basically the same settings that I've been showing you guys throughout this project. I'm going to turn off the bleed since I just wanted to cut a basic square, and turn on Use System Dialog, and then click on the print button. And then I'm going to change my preferences to stay plain white paper, but I'm going to change the quality to high, and then click OK. Then I'm going to print this out. I've already showed you guys how to do that, so I'm not going to show you printing cardstock. But then when it comes to the settings, instead of choosing the material here from my computer, I'm actually going to go over to the dial and I'm going to use light cardstock. Now, if you're using a heavier cardstock, of course, you're going to have to change your cut setting, but I'm going to change my dial to light cardstock to cut both of these mats. So I'm going to go ahead and print out this page, and I'll see you guys over at my craft table to show you how to finish up this card.
So I've already cut and scored my card base. Now I'm going to place my print then cut card panel on my light grip cutting mat and follow the print then cut process as we have in all the other tutorials in this video. So I'll insert it into my Explore Air 2 and then press the go button and let my Explore Air 2 take care of it. While my Air 2 is print then cutting, I'm going to take my card base and go ahead and fold along the score line so that I'm ready to assemble my card. Then once that's done cutting, I'll unload my mat and remove the card panel. And now all we need to do is finish assembling the card. So we'll open up my card base and make sure that it's facing the right way. So this is the front of the card. And now all I need to do is add some adhesive to the back of my card panel and stick it on the front. So my adhesive of choice is double-sided tape. You can use whatever adhesive you prefer. I'm just gonna cut a couple of strips and place it on the back of this card panel. It doesn't have to be even or pretty because nobody is ever gonna see the back of the card. Then once they're all stuck down, next I'm just going to peel off the white cover pieces to reveal the sticky side of the tape. And then we'll flip it over and center it on the card base. Stick it down and then push to adhere it into place. That's why I like double-sided tape, because there's no dry time or messy glue that you have to bother with. And once you're done, you have an elevated card that was all made with your Cricut.
And the final project that we are going to make in this video is a Print Then Cut bookmark. To get started, we're going to go over to the Basic Shapes panel and insert a rectangle with rounded corners. So I'm going to be using this one here, but I was looking through the different shapes, and if you have Cricut access, you could use some of these other shapes like this rectangle, or you could even use kind of the gift tag and stretch it out to make it a bookmark. So there's lots of creative shapes that you could use if you don't want to just use a plain rectangle. But I'm going to go ahead and insert this one. Then I'm going to keep it selected and unlock it so that I can change the size. Now I'm going to make the size 2 inches wide by 7 inches high. That's going to be the size of my rectangle. So it's going to look something like this. Next, I want to add in a circle here at the top so that I can add a tassel or a ribbon. Now that's definitely an optional step. You don't have to do this, but I think it does make a really nice touch. So I'm going to go back to the Basic Shapes panel and insert a circle. Then I'm going to size that circle at 0.15 inches wide. So it's going to be super tiny. And I'm going to put it over here on top of my rectangle. Not quite at the very top, because I don't want like a ribbon or anything to rip through the top, but pretty close to the top. Then I'm going to click and draw a box around both. And under Align, I'm going to choose Center Horizontally to make sure that the circle is perfectly in the center. Then after that, I'm going to keep them both selected and go down to the Actions menu. I'm going to choose Combine and then Subtract. And that's going to remove the circle here in the middle. And now we are all ready to go. So we talked earlier in this video about only being able to print then cut on white cardstock if you have an Explore Air 2. Otherwise, if you have one of the more updated machines, you can print then cut on colored cardstock and some very light pattern cardstock as well. But I do want to show you how to make this a really, really neat pattern instead of having to print on pattern cardstock. So first, what we're going to do is keep that rectangle selected. And under Operation, we're going to go from Basic Cut to Print Then Cut. And then once the operation has changed to Print Then Cut, I'm going to click on the color box next to Operation. And under Print Type, instead of color, I'm going to choose Pattern. Now you can use one of the patterns here in Design Space, or you can actually upload your own. But this can be really, really fun to play with, because there's lots and lots of options. You can also upload like digital patterns for like scrapbook paper, and you can utilize those patterns here in Cricut Design Space as well. But some of my favorite patterns in Design Space here are these kinds of dot patterns. I think that they just turn out so cute and they add such a cute effect. So let's choose these pink dots here. So I just clicked them to select them. But I do want to be able to edit this. Sometimes this is a little bit glitchy in Design Space, but if I go back to the pattern again, I want to have the option to edit pattern. So I'm going to click that here, and then you'll see it show up here on our shape, and we'll be able to scale it. So you can kind of see that it's a little bit like repetitive throughout this shape. So we're going to scale it to be a lot larger than that, so we don't see any lines in between our boxes. And once I scale it to cover the whole bookmark, it does say here that pattern may appear on screen in low resolution, but will print in high resolution, so not to worry. So then we'll click out of that. And now we can add anything else to our bookmark that we'd like to add. We don't have to add anything here, but I think that that's part of the fun of Print Then Cut, is that you can add some more intricate details. So I'm going to go to Upload, and I'm going to insert some of my recent images that I've added into Design Space. I may even add maybe the cross as well. And now I can arrange these on my bookmark. So I'm just going to take the Happy Easter and scale it down so that it's going to fit on the bookmark nicely. And maybe I'll center it. So then you can scale down something like the cross, and you can either do that below or above Happy Easter if you like. Or I think that the bunny image looks really, really cute above or below Happy Easter. So there's just lots of cute options that you can do here, and you don't have to add any vinyl or mess with anything like that. That's just kind of the beauty of Print Then Cut. So I think I'm going to save the bunny for another project. And instead, I'm going to do Happy Easter and then put the cross underneath it. I want to center it on the bookmark and maybe make it look something like this. Then once I have all of my images and clip art arranged onto the bookmark, next I need to select all of them at the same time and choose flatten. And that way they'll print in all the right spots, exactly where we have them here on the canvas. Then I am going to duplicate this 2 more times so that I can fill up my page of Print Then Cut, and I believe I can probably fit about 3 per page. Then I'll click on Make It, and we'll double check that we like the way that everything looks, and I think that that looks pretty good. So I'll click on Continue. Next, we're going to follow pretty much the same steps that we did in the card project, because I'm going to be using 65-pound cardstock once again. I'm going to click on the green Send to Printer button. I'm going to turn off the bleed and use system dialog, and then click on Print. And then under Preferences, I'm going to keep the paper type the same but change the quality to high, and then click OK. And then I can print from here. And again, since I'm going to be using the 65-pound cardstock, I'm going to keep my Explore Air 2 set on the light cardstock setting around the dial. But keep in mind, if you're using a heavier cardstock, that you'll want to change that cardstock setting to match the weight of the cardstock that you're using. So now I'm going to go ahead and print this out, and I'll meet you guys over at my craft table to show you how to finish up this project.
So once your bookmarks are printed, then you can place them on your cutting mat. I like to use light grip for my 65-pound cardstock. Then you can insert your mat into your Cricut machine and press go to print then cut your bookmarks. Then once they're finished cutting, you can unload them from your machine and peel them off of the mat. Then once they're done, your bookmarks will look something like this. Now you could certainly put these double-sided and tape or glue them together if you want to add some extra thickness to them. I'm probably just going to leave mine one-sided, but just know that there are some options. Then you can take some ribbon if you like, or a tassel if you put a hole at the top of your bookmark and sort of add it in. So I'm using a super thin ribbon, and I'm just going to stack it on top of each other at the end here. Then I'm going to hold the bookmark from the back side and sort of feed the ribbon through to the front. You may have to do it one side at a time if your hole is really narrow like mine. Then you want to even up those ends and pass them through the loop like that. And then you have a bookmark with a little finishing touch. These bookmarks just turned out so cute. I think they're such a fun and easy print then cut project. If you're the type of crafter who likes to use checklists to make sure that you don't forget anything, then you should join my free craft resources vault. It's full of free checklists, freebies, and downloads with lots more resources to come in the future. Be sure to bookmark the vault either on your computer or open up a tab on your phone. Otherwise, each time that you return to the vault, you can simply enter your email address to see the latest resources. All you need to do is enter your email to join, so be sure to find the link down on this page to go straight to the Craft Resources Vault. Which Print Then Cut project was your favorite? I would love to hear your thoughts over in the Cricut Craft Fest Facebook group. Just make sure that you tag me at DIY Alex Vanover so that I see all of your posts. If you want to learn more from me, you can find my links to all my social media platforms, my blog, and all of my free resources over on DIYAlex.com.